This is a response to SuperDan88's video, why we collect retro gaming. And for me, like a lot of other people, it starts with nostalgia. I start with the systems that, like the color computer. That's actually not retro collecting as much as it is keeping what I already have. But I add things like the Atari 2600 or the VIC-20 that has a collection with my past, and the games that I choose are games that I played in the arcade and or games that I was familiar with, and so certainly nostalgia enters into it. But there are people that collect that weren't even alive back then, so that's nostalgia isn't quite the only reason. I tend to think a lot of it is the imagination that went into retro and went into vintage games. Today we have a lot of games, but if you think about it, most games are a first-person shooter, a third-person shooter, an RPG, a racing game, a sports game, and there may be one or two others, but they tend to be very much within one category or another. They tend to be fairly easily, labeled and pigeonholed, because there just isn't that many truly unique games. The games aren't unique from each other. And, when you think about it, a first-person shooter is pretty much the same, whether you're shooting zombies or Nazis or aliens or whatever you might be shooting. The same with the third person. And a racing game, if you've got a different car, or maybe you're racing motorcycles or golf carts, or whatever you might be racing, they tend to be very much the same. But if you look at vintage games, yes, there were a lot of Space Invaders inspired games and clones, and yes, there were a lot of maze games that borrowed very much from Pac-Man. But even with Pac-Man, when you'd see a maze game, you'd get something like Berserk or Dig Dug, which really are completely different from Pac-Man. But if you look at games like Space Invaders, Pac-Man, Donkey Kong, Centipede, Tempest, Joust, Frogger, those games are not similar in much of ways at all. They're very much different games from each other, and that tended to be the norm. Like I say, yes, you would, when you get something like Space Invaders, you'd build on it with Galaxian or something like that, but there were also, a lot of unique games, and, Asteroids, Missile Command, there just was a lot more variety, and there were a lot more games back then that were really unique. And today you just don't see that. Every once in a while you'll see a unique game, but most of what you see now is just a different version. A lot of times, if it's a first-person, third-person shooter, or whatever, it even uses the same game engine. It's just made so that the sceneries are different. And so I think we appreciate the uniqueness of some of those vintage games. At least I think that's one of the reasons. So, if you agree with me, post a video response to this, or post a video response to SuperDan88's original video. If you agree, if you think I'm completely full of it, well, post a response and let me know that I'm full of it. If you think I'm partially right and you have some other ideas to add, well, like I say, make your own video and let's continue to discuss it.